All right, what's up, everybody? Back at it. The next book that I'm going to present on my presentation for what I've learned from reading this book is this book right here, Zecharia Sitchin, The Stairway to Heaven. It's supposed to be the second book of his Earth Chronicles. I actually did them kind of order. I did the third one last time, but I went back and did the second one. I just had them mixed up in the bookcase that it had. But this is the book that I'm going to be going over. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. First, before we jump into it, let me just shout out to Lil Vibe. Visit him on Spotify. Great music, inspirational, motivation, and a hell of a good artist. So visit Lil Vibe on Spotify. And a great supporter. We've been supporting each other back and forth for almost a year now, hardcore. And I got to say that I really do enjoy his music. So please visit him on Spotify. All right. So the introduction of this book. So this is the information that I got from my book. I just grabbed whatever information I had that came straight from the book. So it was published in 1980, or it was at least copyrighted in 1980. Follows the 12th planet. It focuses on basically, ancient monuments, myths, biblical stories as evidence of contact with the Anunnaki. And it's very controversial, seen as pseudo archaeology by scholars, but influential in ancient astronaut theory, more specifically in the Ancient Alien show. Sacred mountains and monuments. It talks about all this stuff. It gets into the idea. That's why stairways to heaven, literal gateways to the gods, ziggurats, pyramids, launch pads, sacred sites, so on. Mount Hermon, Sinai, and so on and so forth. And then the biblical connections, you got Jacob's ladder, a stairway linking earth and heaven, Tower of Babel, human attempt to rival the gods or reach the gods. Ezekiel's vision, which is reinterpreted as a spacecraft encounter. Okay, but this is all in visions. This isn't with the two eyes. It's like in a meditative state. So I don't understand how they got that. But I'll get into it. Cross-cultural myths, Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, Mesoamericans, all the individual civilizations out there that share myths about quote-unquote sky gods. And let's see. The Anunnaki's role. Well, most people know them as powerful beings from the 12th planet, which is wrong because there's nothing that actually says in the Cuneiform Digital Library of Initiative or the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature that is about planet Nibiru. So anybody that believes in that, just send me the cuneiform identifier that indicates that, and then we can have a discussion from there. But until then, Zecharia Sitchin was definitely wrong about planet Nibiru, and I've talked about that plenty of times, and I also have other evidence, but I'm not here to do that. I'm here to talk about this book. Kingship established to maintain their authority. That's nothing new. Everybody has done that. You got priests as intermediaries, and then you have the shaped early law writing and religion that comes from Mesopotamia. The criticism and controversy, scholars, there's no evidence of extraterrestrial visits. I don't know why some scholars or academic scholars say there's no evidence, because evidence is all determined on who sees it, right? I'll put it like this. There are people in prison right now that had enough evidence to say they were guilty of a crime that they did not commit. So when you talk about evidence, you need to describe what evidence is. So that's part of my criticism and controversy. The translation is disputed. I myself, I'm trying to teach myself how to read the digital library of cuneiform tablets. I'm trying to learn the cuneiform tablets myself. And I'm trying to learn the language myself as far as the writing system. I can't learn how to speak it because nobody actually knows how to speak it or say the cuneiform identifier tablets or whatever. So it's always going to be disputed. A lot of people don't like Zecharia Sitchin because they say he misinterpreted things, but let's just be honest. I don't like Zecharia Sitchin, his idea about planet Nibiru, but I'm going to sit here and say that he didn't try to understand. I don't know him personally, and I've never been around him to understand this, but what I can tell you is that he hasn't been able to provide cuneiform tablet identifiers, nor was he able to provide pictures of these cuneiforms that actually said what he said. So here we are stuck with what we are at with the translations being disputed. Uh, Even though Zecharia Sitchin wrote his first book in 1976, The 12th Planet, it sparked a global interest in Sumerian texts. I don't believe that. A lot of people say that, but a lot of people know who Zecharia Sitchin is and don't even know who the hell is Samuel Noah Kramer, let alone George Smith or Andrew George, which bothers me because Zecharia Sitchin actually talks about a couple of them in the book. But so many people will go to Zecharia Sitchin in a heartbeat and say, boom, he was right. But Samuel Noah Kramer, among others like Andrew George and George Smith, didn't believe the same exact stuff that Sitchin did. But here we are today. And we are going to have, one um, an understanding better from my due diligence and my studies. This is not an idea of me being right and Sitchin being wrong. It's about what I've actually proved and what I can show by the evidence that I have. When I say evidence, what I mean is, and it's different for everybody, it's just where did you get the information from? Basically, that's evidence. Now you have to prove whether that evidence is admissible in the court of being fact versus fiction, right? Zecharia Sitchin has inspired a lot of UFO and ancient astronaut theories. He has gotten to the point where he has shared his ideas and theories to the point where people believe him more than others. And it's just scary that I've read all his books and I can tell you that I've done my due diligence. I mean, those are tabs that I have in these books. I have these on every single book that I've ever read. Every book that I ever read I'm not going to say in my life because I didn't start doing this until maybe about 5 years ago. But every book that I own as of now that I've read multiple times, I try to make sure that I have a tab of knowing what I'm talking about. I don't like to say things about my opinion. My opinion doesn't matter. It's about what I can show you or show myself to be right and what possibly is wrong. I don't ever try to out somebody being wrong. I just like to understand where they got this information from and how well do they understand that information. Have they went far back enough to understand what that information they had grabbed, and can they share it in a way that it makes sense to me? Not everybody's like that, but I am. Why it matters? Well, it explores the human search for connection with the heavens. Well, where is heaven? Well, let's put it like this. God is supposedly resides in heaven, right? And if God resides in heaven, that means he lives outside of Earth's atmosphere, which makes him extraterrestrial. I don't even have to argue that. I don't know why people can't even accept that, even if you're religious, if you believe in, Muhammad, if you believe in Jesus, I don't care who you believe in. If you're God, Allah, or God, which is the same thing, just said in different languages, if this individual lives outside of Earth's atmosphere, guess what? They're extraterrestrial. Okay. Say what you want to say. And if you look at the etymology of the word alien, well, it just means foreign to us, basically. Foreign to you, foreign to me, foreign to the person that it is understandable. I don't know why people get so hurt about words. I get hurt about words sometimes too. There's certain words that would make me emotional. I kind of understand it, but I don't understand when it comes to facts. When you're hurting somebody with words is different. When you come in with facts, I mean, you got to understand what you're saying. And a lot of people don't do that. That's why a lot of people say, or a lot of podcasters, individuals who are trying to prove that they're right, they're definitely going to say, my opinion. Well, what is your opinion based on? Can you show me? Well, go do your own research. That's what they say. You know what I'm saying? I used to say that dumb stuff too. I used to say, go do your own research. When I turned that around because that was ignorant of me. That was stupid of me to tell somebody to go do their own research. I did the research, so I'm giving you my research. Okay, the tabs. So when somebody tells me to do my research, you telling the wrong person, you know what I'm saying? Because I've read what you've read, and I probably already tabbed it up a couple of more times than you. And I guarantee you I tabbed it up more than most people because I don't know too many people that do what I do. But it's not about what I do. It's about how I do it. And the reason why I do it the way I do it is because I learned from my mistakes. Like I said, I used to tell people all the time to go do their own research, and now they don't even have to waste their time doing their research. I'm going to give you everything that I have. And if I'm wrong, tell me how I'm wrong. But it refrains myths as possible historical records. Well, historical records go as far as back as a writing system. Well, the first writing system is supposed to go back to the Sumerians because of their writing system, but their writing system didn't start off talking about gods and this, that, and the third. It started off with agriculture, trading, and so on and so forth. So when people say that the Sumerians started off with their writing system, they didn't write about gods. They depicted what some people believe are gods, but they didn't write anything about gods. Okay. But then you got it. Some people who would say, which I agree, that pictographic script is considered a writing system. So I can't argue with that. So whatever you consider a writing system, hey, it's up into interpretation and translations. And that's why a lot of people get things misunderstood or some things wrong because they look at it different. Just imagine 20 people going to the museum and looking at a picture on the wall. Those 20 different people are going to have possibly different ideas. And some of them are possibly going to have other great ideas. So, or the same idea. So you never know. You just got to go with the flow. But it raises questions about myth versus history. Well, what is myth versus history? Well, myth is history and history is myth, right? Because it can go back and forth. But it just for me personally, it's just the idea that, hey, look, check it. This is what the ancient people possibly said. So we're going to go ahead and go on from that. Oh man, I didn't mean to do that. So the closing thoughts just on this thing on this PowerPoint slide, because I didn't even get to the book. I'm gonna get to these tabs. Was the Stairway to Heaven a metaphor for spiritual ascent or a memory of mankind's first contact with the stars? Well, I know a lot of people who have asked this question so many times, and that's why I put that in there. We've been looking at the stars for thousands and thousands of years. One of my favorite books, hardest book that I've ever read in my life, was Almagest by Ptolemy. One of the hardest books, Magest. I can't remember. Almagest by Ptolemy, and it's basically the recording of the stars, the constellations, how the Earth moved, and so on and so forth. Very important book. If you want to know more about it, I highly recommend getting it and reading it. But to me, it was all mathematics, and I don't really understand mathematics like that, but I understand the wording that they put in and what it portrayed. So I can go that. And then, so we're going to go back to this part right here, and I'm going to go to the very first tab that I have on this book, so that way there's no misunderstanding. Now, a lot of times when I tab these things up, I don't know why I tabbed them. I just felt like it was interesting at that time, so I tabbed it up. But I like to have a little commentary and review of what I've learned. So one of the first tabs that I have in this book is in March 1513, Ponce de Leon set out northward to look for an island of Bimini. Okay, a lot of people know about Bimini. The public excuse for the expedition was a search for gold and other metals. The true aim was to find the fountain of eternal youth. This the seamen soon learned as they came upon not one island, but hundreds of islands in the Bahamas. Now, that's actually true. You know, they were looking for gold. The thing about Zecharia Sitchin is he tries to play the idea of gold, that the Anunnaki needed gold for their home planet, to basically put it in particles into their atmosphere because their planet was dying and it needed something to protect the atmosphere, so on and so forth. And there's no cuneiform tablet that says that. I don't know where the hell he got that from, but if you believe that, look, all I'm asking you to do, if you're listening to me, if you're watching me, go find the cuneiform tablet that says that. Where did he get that from? Everybody has been looking for gold. Matter of fact, when man was starting to, be on this planet from different continents around the world, they were looking for all kinds of resources and they found things. They had a lot of time. They didn't have internet and all this other stuff. What you think they did? They went out and hunted. They fell into different places. They moved. They migrated. They did things and so on and so forth. They found stuff. So looking for gold is nothing. But let's look at the fountain of youth. Now, this is the idea, because every man, every woman that I've learned to come across has talked about the idea of living forever, whether they wanted to live forever or not. So looking for a fountain of youth, well, what else could a fountain of youth sound like in ancient times? Well, water, right? Staying alive, right? So fountain of youth, interpretation, understanding, depictions. Come on, man, let's think about it. We need water to survive. So we need water to stay alive. Some people would say that water, if you cleanse yourself, you will look younger if you know how to use the certain types of substances like lotion and soap and all this. And believe me, they had soap back then, so people don't need to worry about that. So let's go to the second tab. The second tab that I found that was interesting. Let's see. Okay, so I have to go to the next, back to the page. Let's see. Hold on, because this is a two-part. Okay. All right. To the learned advisors of Europe's medieval kings and queens, the various versions only serve to confirm both the antiquity and the authenticity of the legend of Alexander and the Fountain of Life. But where, oh, where were these magical waters located? Now, let me, like I said, come on, man. When we look, show me where it says that these people were trying to find a fountain of youth to stay alive to the point where they was not drinking it as a substance to stay alive. Okay, this is, like I said, look, I don't know if I said that correctly. Let me backtrack. Water is needed for us to survive. Okay, um, I need to see what exactly the cuneiform tablet said, or I need to see where exactly he got this information from to understand what he's saying. Because, like I said, he put in quotation marks. I didn't say this, but he put in quotation marks right here. And thus, we are told, ends the tale of the cook and the maiden. Well, where did he get that quotation mark from? This is page 12 of his book. When you quote something, where did you get it from? Are you just saying that just because you saying, hey, I read this somewhere? Where did you read it from? That's what I want to know. And that's why I said Zecharia Sitchin wasn't able to actually show where he got a lot of this stuff from. But that's on him. That's why I'm asking these questions, because people who believe in him and think that he's right, where did he quote on page 12? And thus we are told, ends the tale of the cook and the maiden. Show me where he quoted that from. All right, let's see. Here we go. Next tab. Writing about the visions that had motivated the exploration that led to the discovery of America. Angel Rosenblatt summed up the evidence thus. Along with the belief in the earthly paradise was associated another desire of messianic or Faustick nature to find the fountain of eternal youth. All the Middle Ages dreamed of it. In the new images of the lost paradise, the tree of life was converted into the fountain of life and then to a river or spring of youth. Okay. All right. Quoting somebody else's work, that's fine and dandy and all that. But that doesn't make it that just because the tree what do you say, the tree of life was converted into the fountain of life. What evidence gave you that information? Because I'm telling you right now, when you go to the next page, it's the next chapter. Okay, and he really didn't explain that part for me on that part. Like I said, you have to read the whole book to understand it. I've read this book 5 different times. I've actually read every Zecharia Sitchin book at least 5 different times. So I'm not lost in the sauce. I actually know what he was wrote about. But he does talk about the fountain of life a lot. Let's see. And he likes to reiterate a lot of the stuff that he said in his old books. It's almost like he took what he said in one book and asked somebody to convert this into another paragraph, just change up a couple of things so he can fill up some pages. But we're going to continue. Alexander was far from being surprised, as though he had encountered the very person he had searched for. His arrival apparently expected. Alexander was invited into the creator and overseer of the entire universe. He went within and saw a fire bright haze and seated on the throne, the god whom he had once seen worshipped by men and Rokatai, the Lord Serapis. In the Greek version, it was the god Dionysus. So that's not that information is pretty accurate. He's just worded it in different ways, but yeah, that information is pretty accurate. And I'll say this, like I said, Zecharia Sitchin wasn't wrong on everything. He took a lot of historical things and he just converted it into making people believe that these gods were came from planet Nibiru, and he felt in that, to me, tremendously, because I this is 1976. I used to believe what Zecharia Sitchin believed until I did my own due diligence. Here's another tab. In yet another version, Alexander encountered not one but 2 men from the past, Enoch and the prophet Elijah, 2 who, according to biblical traditions, have never died. There's actually 3 people that haven't died, according to some texts, but I'm going to keep it moving because I'm definitely going to talk about that in the future. It happened when Alexander was traversing in an uninhabited desert. Suddenly his horse was seized by a spirit which carried horse, and I'm reading it just like it says, which carried horse and rider aloft, bringing Alexander to a glittering tabernacle. Inside he saw the 2 men. Their faces were bright, their teeth whiter than milk, their eyes shone brighter than the morning star. They were lofty of stature, of gracious look. Telling him who they were, they said that God hid them from the death. They told him that the place was the city of the storehouses of life, from where the bright waters of life emanated. But before Alexander could find out more or drink of the waters of life, a chariot of fire snatched him away, and he found himself back with his troops. Now, this was a vision. This wasn't something that happened to him physically. This was a vision, like a dream, right? Astral projection, probably lucid dreaming, probably just a dream. It wasn't something that he's seen personally, like he wasn't physically done, because there'll be a lot more evidence for that. But we'll keep it moving. We'll keep it pushing. So we're gonna go to the next tab. Oh, it's on the bottom. So actually, the next tab is it's all the way on the bottom. So this is what I have to do. So this is what I like to do. So you see that yellow tab that's on the bottom? That means I have to read that whole page until I get to the next tab. And I'm not going to do that because of copyright reasons, and I don't. You can't read everything. It just basically talks about. I'll read the first part. It says, ascending thus unto the heavens upon clouds that move. Enoch was transported from the first heaven where 200 angels rule the stars. Now that's not incorrect at all. You can read the book of Enoch and go from that. But see, this is the thing about the book of Enoch. There's 3 different versions of it, okay? And according to some of the texts that I've read, the first version is the only accurate version. The second and third one is hit or miss. But the point is that if you want to truly understand, oh yeah, that's a good question. Wonder if that is a reference to Venus and Lucifer. I thought the same thing, vibe, and the reason why is because our eyes shone brighter than a morning star, but Jesus was also considered a morning star too. So could it be Venus, Lucifer, and Jesus, or could it have been just I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Good morning, Chris. What's going on? So let's go to the next. Okay, so this is the other thing that I like to do with tabs. So on this tab is on page 3. It's actually Ta. And what I do is some of the tabs, if it really sticks out to me, I don't know if you guys will be able to see it. Yeah, you see how I write on my tabs? See, I don't play around with what I know and what I share. I really do my due diligence, and I really share only what I've read personally, because everybody gets their information from somewhere, and I like to show you exactly where I got my information from. So that way that you can't say I'm wrong, my source is wrong. Now just give me a source better than the source that I have that you say I'm wrong on, and I'll cut that source out. That's what I do. But until then, this is what I do. I literally go and try my hardest to be as accurate as I can to the actual text and what that person said. And this one is you see what it says, Todd. So it says, whereas the Hebrews, the Greeks, and other peoples in antiquity recounted tales of unique few who were able to escape a mortal's fate by divine invitation. The ancient Egyptians developed the privilege into a right, not a universal right, nor a right reserved to the singularly righteous, but a right attendant on the Egyptian king, the pharaoh, by sole virtue of having sat on the throne of Egypt. The reason for this, according to the traditions of ancient Egypt, was the first rulers of Egypt were not men of gods. Okay, let me say that again. The reason for this, according to the traditions of ancient Egypt, was that the first rulers of Egypt were not men, but gods. It's interesting. What's up, baby? How you doing today? It's interesting that he said that because of the simple fact that what is a god? You know what I'm saying? What is a god? Right now, I can go to North Korea right now, and I guarantee you, I go over there, they got a god over there. They're going that the president over there, they worshiping him as a god, and the father before that. But what is a god? Okay. I've seen people do some extraordinary things. Okay. Jesus walked on water. I didn't see that, but I've seen men get shot in the chest and lived. That's godlike abilities. I've seen on Stan Lee's show Superhumans, where a dude can transfer electricity from an outlet to a light bulb. I actually have a picture of me holding a light bulb, and I guess my energy was so high and so up there that the light bulb stayed a little bit lit. I'm not joking. I've shared it so many times on my Facebook and my Twitter account. A lot of people think I be bullshitting about stuff. Look, hey, I'm not bullshitting about nothing. All I do is share what I share. But let's see. Okay, so this is another example of what I do with my tabs. And this is why I feel like a lot of people get offended or get in their feelings about what I know is because I do brag about what I know. I know a lot. I've taken the time to read. Most people spend 6 to 8 hours at work and longer, right? Those 6 to 8 hours that some people spend at work, I'm over here reading, researching, and sharing what I've learned. I don't play about what I know, but there's another tab that I write stuff in. Let's see if you can see that. Yep, you see it? You see the writing? You see that writing on that tab? That's what I do. Okay, and this one says Osiris, Ta, Seth, and Ra. Now, I would have to read the whole thing in this, but basically it's just showing how there's similarities in these things. What I liked about this is that in some cases Zecharia Sitchin did give some of his pictures and stuff. So here's a picture of some of the stuff that he talked about. So this is supposed to be what does it say on the bottom? Because I can't. Hold on, let me make it bigger for y'all, because I know y'all probably can't see it. But on the bottom, it says, hold on, the celestial disc and the gods of Egypt, okay? And it says Ra, falcon, Horus, falcon, Seth, Sinai, ass, Thoth, ibis, Hathor, cow, okay? And this is just some of the stuff that he shares. So it's not, like I said, I'm not trying to say somebody's right and wrong, because Zecharia Sitchin did have some very interesting things he talked about. But I'm just saying, me personally, I'm telling you right now, there is no damn planet Nibiru, and it doesn't orbit our sun every 3,600 years. Until we get some scientific evidence on that, then I won't back that up. But once we do, then I can change my theory. Look, matter of fact, I will retire from all this shit that I do once somebody provides to me the actual cuneiform tablet identifier that says there's a planet Nibiru that orbits our sun every 3,600 years. I will retire from this. And I know that's nothing really big. Not too many people would care in the first place. But for me, if once I get that information, I'll know where the gods came from, and I'm good. I already know who these gods are. I know what makes a god, and I know what gods are capable of doing, right? I know it. I know some of them can persuade men to kill their first sons, the son that they always wanted, Abraham and Isaac, for example, right? But here's another tab. For unexplained reasons, the rule of Horus was followed. Hey, this is going to actually be cool, little vibe. This is what you might like and enjoy. For unexplained reasons, the rule of Horus was followed by a period of chaos and decline. How long this lasted, no one knows. Finally, circa 3200 BC, a dynastic race arrived in Egypt, and a man named Menes ascended the throne of a reunited Egypt. Now, this is what gets me so much. Let me pause this, because I'm about to blow y'all mind. So Zecharia Sitchin used the date 3200 BC, okay? The first civilization that started on this planet is supposedly the Sumerian civilization. Why? Because of their writing system. I took a class from Bar-Ilan University from Dr. Nili Samet, Nilisamet, and she said specifically that the Sumerian civilization started around 3200 BC. Because of their writing system. Now, you remember when I talked about earlier when I was talking about the PowerPoint presentation, pictographic scripts can be used as a writing system. Some people believe that. I'll argue that. Why? Because emojis can be used as a way of describing and talking to one another, as long as two parties know what the emojis stand for. And if not, they'll come to a happy medium of what they understand and what they mean to each other. But he says 3200 BC, the throne of a reunited Egypt. So that means, now this book was written in 1980, 4 years after his 1976, The 12th Planet. He passed away, I can't remember, sometime around 2012. I'm not going to give out a day, but I know Zecharia Sitchin passed away somewhere around the early 2000s or somewhat like that. If he had a conversation with Dr. Nili Samet and she told him, hey, look, the Sumerian civilization started at 3200 BC because of their writing system. And he wrote right here, a reunited Egypt, meaning that they already had a king in place. They already had a god in place. They already had a civilization in place. What does that tell me? Damn, I mean, shit, the Egyptian civilization must have started first. Now, I've done an article where I took another class, and I can never say this school's name right because I always butcher it, but it's like Bibliotheca Alexandrica, something like that. I can never say it right, but I took a class from there before, and the professor from that class said the civilization of the Egyptians, which of course they weren't called the Egyptians at the time, they were Kemits or something else, started around 5500 BC. So that tells me that the ancient Egyptians, according to what I gather right now, as far as what I have, all the information that I've ever gathered throughout the 5 years of my research, hardcore due diligence, and all this, and I'm not saying just 5 years, I'm talking about hardcore research, started around 5500 BC for the ancient Egyptians. Now, anybody can argue that. That's fine. I mean, I don't believe the Egyptians are the first civilizations either, because what makes a civilization? And I've asked that to so many people. People get upset about the question. Like, you already know the answer. No, the hell, I don't know the answer. That's why I'm asking the question in the first place. But we're going to keep it pushing because that's what I do. Next tab. But if afterlife was possible, it was not easily attained. The departed king had to traverse a long and challenging road and had to undergo elaborate ceremonial preparations before he could embark on his journey. Now, that's actually true. You can read the what's it? Jeez, it just passed my head. Oh man, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I almost messed that up. Almost messed that up. Yeah. You know what's so funny, Melissa? When I started my website, rebirthoftheword.com 5 years ago, I actually, if you read the introduction on my website, it actually says in so many ways, it's not exact words because I don't remember exactly how I worded it. But if we take all the puzzle pieces that we have together and put them together, there's no telling what a kind of picture we may see. And what I mean by that is most people, matter of fact, let me see. All right. I do puzzles with my family a lot. Okay. When you get a puzzle, okay, you get a picture of what it looks like. Okay, this is a puzzle pieces from that we're going to do this Christmas. 500 pieces. Okay, and there's 5 of us, right? And when you receive these puzzles pieces, these a box like this with puzzles, you typically get a picture with it. So that means that when you get it, you already have a predetermined, preconceived idea of what you're going to be seeing, right? And this is supposed to be fact. It's supposed to be exactly what it's supposed to show, right? So you can look at the puzzle piece and be like, oh, this is blue. Okay, let me find something blue. Oh, it goes over here. Oh, this is red. Hey, let me put some red here. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, this looks like hair and it's blonde. Oh, I know where this might go. You can put your little pieces together. You can work together and do it yourself, right? Now imagine you get these 500 pieces in a Ziploc bag. No indicator of anything what it looks like, right? Guess what you gotta do? You're going to go through trials and tribulations trying to figure it out yourself, or you and your family and whoever you're working with is going to have to work together to put those puzzles together. Then when you finally put that last piece together, bada boom, bada bang, you know what it looks like. But say you missing just one piece, everybody that put that puzzle together is going to come up with an idea of what it possibly looked like, right? But you won't know until you find that last piece. And that's why I say we all have to work together. But you know what? There's too much competition out there with these podcasters. And everybody want to be the man and the woman. And I want to be the one to come out with the right information. Well, go ahead and do what you do. Because guess what? For them, it's monetary gain. For me, I just want to know. That's why I say if you can give me anybody that don't, as a matter of fact, the ones that are listening right now that don't like me, give me that cuneiform tablet identifier that says there is a planet Nibiru that orbits our sun every 3,600 years. And I promise you, you will never see me back on this live again. But there won't. And I won't have to worry about it because ain't nobody going to be able to find that. Billy Carson won't be able to find that because he just ain't. That's why, matter of fact, I challenge every single one of you guys who have and do like Billy Carson to go out there and challenge him and ask him. Imagine if 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 100,000 people say, hey, Billy Carson, show me the Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative tablet identifier that says that they came from planet Nibiru. He going to ignore you. He going to ignore every single one of them. Why? Because it's too much money for him to be involved with that. You know, people like the money and they don't like the facts. I like the facts. I don't care about the money. But let's see. Okay, so This one right here is more of a depiction of what he believes is a rocket. And this is on page 70 of his book. If you have his book, go to page 70. But you see that right there? That's supposed to be an indication of him thinking that this is some kind of rocket ship, right? Let me see. It says, okay, it says decorated with scenes of people, places, and objects from the two domains of which he was a viceroy. His tomb preserved to this very day a depiction in vivid colors of a rocket ship. He literally uses the word rocket ship in his book. Its shaft is contained in an underground silo. Its upper stage with the command module is above ground. The shaft is subdivided like a multi-stage rocket. Let me tell you something from somebody who got shot by a rocket. I'm a combat wounded veteran, Purple Heart recipient, United States Army. I know what a rocket looks like. That's not a motherfucking rocket. Sorry to use that type of word, but from somebody who got blown up by one, I'm pretty sure he knows what a rocket looks like, let alone knows how it feels to get hit by one. It's not a rocket, right? And the reason why I say that is because if you look very closely, right in the middle of the connection, right? I get the way this is set up. So if you look at where the top soil and the bottom soil is, the bottom neath of it, you can see where it's like a little, you can see that there's no connection in there. There's no connection in there. And let me see if I can point it out right here. You look right there. There's no connection. That's not a rocket, man. This is what I mean by people want to fantasize and want to trick people and give people misinformation to the point where other people will believe in it. Sometimes it makes me angry. And the reason why it makes me angry is because for the simple fact is why are you fooling? Why are you trying to fool people, man? Don't do that. You know, you're not even alive here to defend yourself, and you shouldn't talk down on the dead. And I'm not talking down on the dead. I'm talking down on your knowledge and the information you pass, Zecharia Sitchin. You fooled a lot of people, and you got people believing this stuff, believing it to the point where they will, just like you have said in your books, what he said in his books, he converted from religion, from Christianity or a monotheistic religion, to creating a whole new religion. It's just a matter of time when we have a religion after ancient aliens. But hold up, wait a minute, time out. We do. Guess what it's called? Scientology. Go read some of them Scientology books and see this stuff ain't in there. I mean, come on. Some of this stuff these people be saying just be blowing my mind without facts. And it's crazy. So the next tab says the bin was, according to the ancient Egyptians, a solid object that had actually come to Earth from the celestial disk. Now, let me tell you something. We know about King Tut's dagger and all this other stuff. There's all kinds of stuff that hits Earth from outside of Earth's atmosphere, right? All kinds of rocks. I mean, we just had that Atlas thing going on, right? Meteorites, comets, the term changes once it goes from, space on hits, the Earth and stuff like that. But sitting here saying from the celestial disk, come on, man. We just say a rock came out the sky and they've learned how to form that rock into a material that they can use for decorations. You don't have to go in there and lie about all this other stuff, okay? We know that stuff hits Earth all the time, asteroids and all kinds of stuff. Come on, we don't have to play that game, and that's what he did. He played with people's emotion. People want to believe in aliens. He took enough information to break that. I'm telling you, I've read so many books on mythologies and religion and all the kinds of stuff. I'm telling you, he just gave you what most people wanted to believe in. That and I'm telling you right now, he wasn't right on it. Archaeologists may also found this is what he says. Archaeologists may also have found a replica of one of these smaller objects. It is an oddly shaped circular object full of intricate curves and cutouts. It has baffled all scholars since its discovery in 1936. It is important to realize that the object was found among other unusual copper objects in the tomb of the crown prince Sabu, son of King Ajib of the first dynasty. It is therefore certain that the object was placed in the tomb circa 3100 BC. Now, when people use dates like that, 3100 BC, why don't we get dates like 3123 or 3155, 3110 or 3101 or 3104? Why is it always an even number like 3100, 3200, 3600? Come on, man. Playing with people's emotions again because they want to make their information right. Because he knows that when that information comes out, he ain't gonna be able to prove his point somewhere, but he can't anyway because he's not here to do it. Let's see. Next tab. Next tab. The interesting point about these earliest writings is that they showed the boats arriving from a foreign land. When the drawings included people, they showed seated rows commanded by a tall master distinguished by the horns protruding from his helmet. Now, this is interesting to me. The only reason why I tapped this in, okay, so let me give you context for this. Let me give you context for this. The Egyptian word for the celestial beings was NTR, a term which in languages of the ancient Near East meant one who watches. The hieroglyphic sign for Netter was basically what it would look like a little banner or a flag. Like all hieroglyphic sounds, it must have represented originally an actual visible object. Such suggestions by scholars have ranged from an axe on a long handle to an ensign. Let's see. So here we go. The pole with the two streamers became the hieroglyphic sign for God. Well, in ancient Hebrew, the sign for God was the aleph and also bull, but the bull has horns and all that. But the reason why I tapped this up specifically was because Moses also had horns, right? And most people associate horns with, guess what? Evil or devil. Most people don't focus on Cush until the Nubian age. However, Chris says, I personally think that Cush has knowledge of what linked the ancient world: Turkey, Kemet, Mali, Empire, Atlantis, Lamar, and so on. Yeah, I agree with you. And the reason why I agree with you on that, Chris, is for the simple fact that when you think of the word Cush, it's African. It has to do with people with black skin, and they don't want that information out. So it's going to be a hard battle trying to convince people to do more research in there, and even worse, it's hard for people to convince people that Kush may be a lot older than what people perceive. And that's just, with the environment that we live on. So it's sad because, like I said, when skin color racism, I've said it before, when skin color racism things get involved, it's never is the information that you're looking for is always going to be something bad, and it's not going to be a good thing for anybody. So this next tab is about the Akkadian language. You can see I wrote it right here. So that means that, you can't see it because it's kind of blurry. There you go. Yeah, so it's kind of blurry. So I'm not going to read the whole thing because I have to read 5-6 pages maybe. But let me break down the Akkadian. Let me break down what I know about the Akkadian Sumerians. So the Sumerians are considered first civilization because of the writing system. The Sumerians called them the Anuna. The Akkadians called them the Anunnaki. The Sumerians called it Nibru instead of Nibiru or Nibiru, like the Akkadians. I know for a fact that Nibiru wasn't a planet, but I do know for a fact that it was a city in Mesopotamia. Nippur, Nippur, is actually Nibiru / Nibru. It's a city in Mesopotamia. Everybody that has studied that to the point where they want to know what Nibiru is, that's what it was. It was a city in Mesopotamia. But it's not the oldest city in Mesopotamia. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. The next tab is here we go. This is good for you. You might like this, Chris. And Cush begot Nimrod. He was first to be a mighty man in the land, and the beginning of his kingdom, Babel, Erech, Uruk, and Akkad, all in the land of Shinar. Now, Shinar is the same thing as Sumer. Shinar is just a biblical term for the word Sumer, for what we know Sumer as. Here we go. The Akkadians, and this is another tab. The Akkadians called them Ailu, I-L-U, lofty ones, from which the Hebrew biblical El stems. The Canaanite, now El is one of the three names of God. Okay, you got El, Elohim, and there's a third one, and I can't remember. I think it's Eli. I'm not sure. I can't remember for which one is what the third one is off the top of my head. But he says the Canaanites and Phoenicians called them Baal, Lord. But at the very beginning of these religions, the Sumerians called them Dinger. Now, I've always said that. He says it's called this. This is what really pisses me off about Zecharia Sitchin. Dinger, he says Dingir, and I've talked about it. He says in quotations means the righteous ones of the rocket ships. That does not mean the righteous ones of the rocket ships. Nowhere in any linguistical type of writing have anybody said that except him. And that's the most stupidest thing in the world. This is why information gets passed incorrectly. He says the righteous ones of the rocket ship. That's what Dingir means. No, Dingir meant either God or goddesses. That's it. Go look it up. Don't ask me to go look it up for you. Look it up. It literally says that. Zecharia Sitchin got to the point where he shared it to, he said that the Akkadians called it the righteous ones of the rocket ships. That is crazy to me. But, you know, like I said, money got to get paid. Somebody got to get paid, right? Somebody got to make some money. Somebody got to fool you, right? So here we go. The next tab. So of course, I have to read a lot of it. But basically, it says Marduk, creation of earth, right there. Marduk of creation of earth. So this is where it's interesting. I've asked Billy Carson personally, tell me where he got this whole 3,600 years in Planet Nibiru idea, and he gave me the answer. In the Sumerians said it in a Numa Elish. First of all, Billy Carson, I'm here to tell you, the Numa Elish is not Sumerian. That is Babylonian. The 7 tablets of creation, the 7 creation tablets, that is Babylonian, way after the Sumerians. So when somebody tells you that the Sumerians said that in the Numa Elish, that lets me know that they don't even know what they're talking about. And that is sad because we got to the point where you can actually look up the Numa Elish tablets and see them for yourself. And you can even translate it for yourself if you know how to read it. None of that talks about it. Matter of fact, he tried to tell me if you go read it, that I would learn it. Well, I've read plenty of times. And the only time it really mentions anything about Planet Nibiru or anything like that, Nibiru, it was because of the idea of all celestial gods at that time, according to the Babylonian, or all the gods were celestial beings. This is no different than the Greek gods being like Mars and Jupiter and all that other stuff. That's why these gods and these goddesses have relationships with the stars, the moon. You got the Pleiades and all this stuff. So I don't know where he got this stuff from, man. It just blew my mind. So what I've learned so far is that matter of fact, if you go through this book and read it, he's not going to give you no cuneiform tablet identifiers. He's not going to tell you exactly where he got it from. He's going to tell you things like that Numa Elish. He's going to say read the book of Enoch, read the Popol Vuh. I've read the Popol Vuh, and I can tell you the Popol Vuh. Matter of fact, forget the Popol Vuh because I've talked about that a lot in my past. The Mahabharata, where everybody talks about the Vimanas and all this other stuff. Matter of fact, I have 3 different copies of the Mahabharata, and all 3 of them don't say, well, one of them says Vimanas, one of them saying flying chariots, and the other one says a different word that I can never remember because it doesn't really pop up, but like once or twice. But let me tell you something. The Mahabharata is a war against gods, and guess why they was fighting? Throwing them dices. That's why they had a war. Somebody was cheating them out of dice. That I'm telling you, that's what the Mahabharata is mostly about. Is about a war because of a dice game. Literally, that's what it is literally about. It's not about these guys coming from heaven and all this other stuff. And, you know, I'm going to use this text and stuff. I ain't never heard anybody from the ancient alien world talk about that being a dice game. And that's why they went to war, because they haven't read the text. They had somebody else read it and they told them something that made them feel good inside. And it was like, oh, I'm going to roll with it. And now we got this ancient alien show passing off incorrect information. Matter of fact, I tell you, I stopped watching Ancient Aliens the moment they had that episode when I think it was in Japan with this big ass boulder and rock. And he was saying something about, I think it was with Giorgio Tsoukalos when he was talking about how it came from outer space and all this. I was just like, yo, man, that's it. I'm done. I was so done with that show after that when he made that, because I could tell by the expressions of the dude from Japan, because it was an interpretation, a translator. Matter of fact, I think the dude was from, he didn't speak no English, and they had to have a translator in between. So, you know, Zougalos, he only wanted to share the stuff that made him feel good about. I don't even think this man even read any of these texts in the first place. So I don't, man, so mind boggling. But this is what people believe, and that's why they believe in aliens. So the next tab is about Enki. So I can't read it all, but some things that I can point out about Enki is that when you read the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature or the ancient literature of Sumer, the book actually, the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature is basically the online version that anybody has access to. So if you want to learn anything, the only problem with it really is that you have to know what words the Sumerians actually use. So when you bring up the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, the ETCSL, if you bring that up on your computer and you see the little search box, because there should be 2 boxes on there. When you go into search and you type Anunnaki in there, you're not going to find nothing on the Anunnaki, because like I said, the Sumerians didn't call them the Anunnaki. They called them the Anuna. So you're going to have to type in ANUNA to get what the Anunnaki in, and they'll bring you a whole bunch of stuff, what text says and all this, and it gives you the transliterations and all this other stuff. Even you can even find the cuneiform tablets on CDLI. But Enki, a lot of people, Zecharia Sitchin, included Billy Carson also, will say that Enki and Enlil were brothers. Well, in some texts, they weren't brothers. One was the father and one was the son. And it's either one. It could have been Enki the father, or it could have been Enlil. It's just depending on it. So, but they say that all the Anunnaki / Anunna came from Anu or / An, which, I mean, if we call them the Anunnaki, what were they called on their planet? Because Elelu was supposedly the god in charge before Anunnaki. So were they called the Elulians? Oh no, come on. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's just a group of people that came from Anu. And why? And matter of fact, let me point this out. According to the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, and I've shared this so many different times, the Anunnaki is just a term for the gods. The Igigi, Igigi, or Iggigi, depending on how you want to spell it. I've seen it spelled different ways. They were considered the great gods. Now, some people will ask, including me, why would the great gods be asking the Anunnaki to create a new species so they can, relieve the toil from the Igigi? The only answer I can come up with was they were leading by example. A good boss is somebody who gets in the dirt with you on work. That's all I got to say about that. And we don't have too many bosses that's doing that these days, right? But here we go. Here's another tab. It says, but like any hybrid, the earthling could not procreate on his own. So this is actually, so I marked this up because this isn't, this is, okay. All right. I'm just going to read it in context because this is funny. Ninher Saga, the chief medical officer, was to assist him. So this is the indication of the creation of humans from Enki, Ninher Saga, Enlil, and Anu. Now, there were 4 individuals that were in charge of creating humans: Enki, Enlil, Ninher Saga, and Anu. We know Anu was supposed to be the head honcho. Enki and Enlil, depending on the time, were supposed to replace him. And then Ninher Saga was, of course, the goddess that was supposed to help. Of course, there were 2 other individuals involved. One was that one god had to be sacrificed for their blood, and then right on, Melissa, right damn on. Once you can see the truth from fiction, you just lose your mind and get upset about some of the stupid stuff that you hear. Right on, right on. It's just there. This is actually in the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature. So according to the actual Sumerian text, there is an indication of the Anunna / Anunnaki creating humans. But I'm going to read what it says. It says, Ninher Saga, the chief medical officer, was to assist him. There was much trial and error until the night procedure was perfected, extracting the egg of the ape woman. Okay. This was supposedly be the DNA or the extraction of the human that was needed to create a better human for toiling. Then they reimplanted the fertilized egg, not in the womb of the ape woman, but in the womb of a female astronaut. Okay. Finally, the perfect model was achieved, and Nehersaga shouted with joy, I have created my hands and have made it. She held it up for all to see, the first Homo sapiens, the Earth's first ever test tube baby. That's what he says, the first ever test tube baby. Now, let me tell y'all something. Let me tell you how stupid this sounds. Anybody that has a dog, they know that there are different types of dogs. Okay. And as long as the dog, a pit bull can have a baby with a chihuahua. I mean, it might be crazy to think about, but that can happen. Right. And my dog just looked at me like, what? But anyway, a pit bull can have a dog, a pup can mate with a chihuahua. Let me tell you something. There were plenty of different species of homos. I'm not going to say Homo sapiens. There were plenty of different types of anatomically humans on planet Earth 300,000 years ago. Now, according to Zecharia Sitchin and his old past information that he has, along with Bruce Fenton, which he don't know what he's talking about either, and a couple of other people, they say that Homo sapiens didn't start 200,000 years ago. That they believe it's Bruce Fenton says 195,000 years ago. Sitchin says around 200,000 years. He gave different dates. He said one thing in his book, and then of course when he did his internet sensation thing, he says some other dates. But let me tell you something. The oldest Homo sapien bones on planet Earth that have been found to this date, as of right now, were found in Morocco, Africa, and that goes back to 300,000 years ago. Okay, these are the first Homo sapiens. Okay, 300,000 years ago. Also, these Homo sapiens, their skulls were elongated, not extreme to the point like the elongated skulls that everybody's known as far as like the ones they found I can't even remember the place that they found them at, but it's in Mesoamerica somewhere. Those, it's not extreme like that or exaggerated like that, but they did have elongated heads. Now, this was 300,000 years ago at Morocco, Africa. Most people know about the ones that were found in Ethiopia 200,000 years ago. Well, that's the old information too, because a new peer-reviewed article just came out. They re-updated their information because they have better ways of testing. And it actually goes back 200,000+ years ago. They don't know exactly how many, but it's anywhere from 200,000, 230,000 years ago. So that old 200,000 idea of Homo sapiens is no longer accurate. Matter of fact, the Homo sapiens that we are today anatomically is not the same as Homo sapiens 100,000 years ago. We did a mass a mass evolution change from there. That's what they say, at least. I don't know how accurate it is. I don't know what you can consider a human anatomically. You got a head, arms, torso, leg, shoulders, feet, hand, toes and fingers and all that stuff, right? But what is a human? Some people are asking what makes a human. Some people go in the idea of what you can say, I don't even know, consciousness, right? But what is a human? What criteria is needed to be considered a human? Because I can tell you right now, there are people on this planet right now that don't have 2 arms and 2 legs. All they have is a torso and a head. Are they not human? Because they don't fit the anatomically idea of what a human is. I don't know. You're gonna have to fight that up with them, because they'll definitely consider themselves human. But let's keep it pushing. It was after that Noah, the righteous man singled out to survive the deluge, was born. His birth occurring at the troubled times when the sons of the gods were indulging in sex with mortal females, caused a marital crisis in the patriarchal family. As the book of Enoch tells it, Methuselah took a wife for his son Lamech, and she became pregnant by him and bore a son. But when the baby Noah was born, things were not as usual. Now, that's accurate. There's a lot of different ideas about that, but Noah was supposedly the one that was supposed to survive the flood. Also, if you look at Zia Sutra, he is also the equivalent to and another good text to read about a flood story. A couple of them. You got the Epic of Gilgamesh, and you also have the Atrahasis. Let's see. But as we examine the original Hebrew, we find that it does not say watchers. It says Nephilim, the very term used in Genesis. Thus, do all the ancient texts and all the ancient tales confirm each other. The days before the deluge were the days when the Nephilim were upon the earth, the mighty ones, the people of the rocket ships. This dude has came up with so many different ideas of what the Nephilim was. And I have a book from him, and I'm not sure if I went over it yet. If I didn't, I know I've posted it in the past. I'm definitely going to go over it again because I'm doing the PowerPoint slides for Zecharia Sitchin's book. So you're going to see it. So make sure you pay attention to what to my post, because you're definitely going to see how I can tell you that Zecharia Sitchin has came up with different terms and ideas and meanings for his terms to fit his narrative. Now, he has a book called The Anunnaki Chronicles. It's not his specifically, but it's by his niece, Janet Sitchin, I believe that's her name. It's the Anunnaki Chronicles. And in that book alone, it has 3 different versions of what the Anunnaki, or I should just say, because he likes to say, that book is basically unpublished stuff that he didn't publish while he was alive. It was something that his niece published afterwards. And this is where it got my gears running in my head to say, yo, this dude was making up a lot more than what what is actually shared. So he gives 3 different versions of what the Nephilim is in that book. And now this is the 4th one. The people of the rocket ships. That's what Nephilim means to him, y'all. To him, the Nephilim means the people of the rocket ships. Come on, man. If you go look at the Strong Concordance, if you go look at the etymology, if you go look at the actual meaning of what Nephilim means, all it means is fallen. That's it. That is it. Fallen. That's it. That's it. Don't put more into it. Don't take nothing else out. Nephilim means fallen. That is it, y'all. That is it. So I don't know where he got the people of the rocket ships from. Somebody please guide me to the right uniform tablet identifier that tells me that, please. But anyway, here's the next tab. This is chapter 7, Gilgamesh, the king who refused to die. Now, this is a good title because if you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, of course, it definitely says that he was looking for some type of substance that was supposed to keep people alive, and this substance was supposed to be underneath some type of a water. But the first tab that I tabbed up on this was, one must understand the history of Uruk. To grasp the epic's dramatic scope, affirming the biblical statements, the Sumerian historical records also reported that in the aftermath of the deluge, kingship, royal dynasties indeed began at Kish. It then was transferred to Uruk as a result of the ambition of Ishtar, who cherished not at all her domain far away from Sumer. So that's actually correct. I was able to back that up. Like I said, not everything Sitchin said was wrong, but he did make a lot of stuff up, and he definitely went to the point where he wanted to create a narrative for his ideas, and he used everything he possibly could. That's why I said, just imagine if 1,000 people, or I'm not even gonna say 1,000 because that wouldn't be enough, but just imagine if everybody would ask Billy Carson, since he took the torch from Zecharia Sitchin and ran with it. Show me where it says it in the Cuneiform Digital Library. This man talks about having so much money and all this other stuff, and ability to do this. I'm right now able to talk to you on this screen and share what I've read personally. Now, if Billy Carson has this information, why he don't get online and show people this stuff? You know how easy it is to string your facts to the table? Do you know how easy it is? It's so easy. I'm doing it right now. I got the book in front of me. You see the tabs. I'm bringing the book up. I'm doing whatever it is that I can show you what I've learned and what I've researched. And I'm not trying to make money from this. All I'm trying to do is do that. But say, hey, let me throw this up there because, I got to say this. I always support Lil Vibe. I got 131 people in here. Thank you for coming and listening so far. Visit Lil Vibe on Spotify, one of my favorite artists out there. And I'm always going to support him. We're going to move to the next one. So El's principal children, however, were 3 sons and 1 daughter. The gods Yam, which is ocean sea, Ba, Lord, and Mot, smitter, annihilator, and the goddess Anat, she who responded. Now, this is what's interesting to me. I can't read this down. When I talk about planet Nibiru and the planet orbiting our sun every 3,600 years, and that there's no text that depicts this or shows that or says that, I mean that. But when you actually look at the depictions of the god Enki, Okay, he's a fish god, water god. He's in a fish suit, or he has water coming out his shoulders. Whenever you see something coming out of Inky, a statue from Sumerians of, like these streams coming out of shoulders, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to say a 10 out of 10 because, there's many ways to depict it, but 9 times out of 10, that's water. That's an indication of water. He was a water god. We know that, right? But he was also depicted in a fish suit. Now, when you really read the cuneiform tablets and understand them, you tend to understand in so many ways that they came from the depths of the seas. Let's see, next tab. Okay, so this is what I'm going to show you guys. This tab right here. So this tab right here is to supposedly be from the cuneiform tablets, right? But they're not, because he doesn't give a cuneiform tablet identifier where I can go read it. But basically, he says Father Enki. Now listen to me. Remember when I said Enki was the father and Enlil was the son, or sometimes Enki was the father and Enlil was the father? This is what it says that he says. Father Enki answered Ninsikila, his daughter. Let divine Utu position himself in the skies. A missile let him tightly affixed to his breast. I'm just going to stop right there. Nothing in the cuneiform tablets says missile. Nothing in the cuneiform tablet says missile. There's no word that indicates missile. There's no transliteration that indicates missile. None of that. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of this. An arrow, translated into today's term, was considered a missile. Look up the etymology of the word missile and tell me that he's not trying to trick people. Just look up the etymology of the word missile. That's it. Just do that. That dude really tried to really fooled a lot of people, and Billy Carson helped them. Not helped them. Billy Carson is prolonging that help on that. So I only have this. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more tabs left. I can't believe it's already an hour, so it's crazy. But an ever-present sight in the Sinai are the tamarisk, bush-like trees that trace the wadi courses year-round, for their roots reach down to the subsurface moisture, and they can grow even when the water is saline and brackish. Brackish is just like a mixture of fresh water with ocean water. After especially rainy winters, the tamarisk groves fill up with a sweet granular white substance, which is the excretion of small insects that live on the tamarisk. The Bedouin call it by its biblical name manna to this very day. Now, this is interesting to me because, like I always say, when you use a word, you got to know what you're talking about. There's this thing called the Strong Concordance. If you don't know what that is, that's basically the translations of basically the words that we understand in Greek and now today in English that comes from Aramaic and Hebrew. Okay, in the Greeks, this is basically the translation. When you go to Bible Hub, or if you just look up manna in a Strong Concordance by itself, you will see that manna means man, 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 man. That's what it means. Manna means man. So when I read the Bible and I hear that God provided a substance for the Israelites to survive those 40 years, I'm thinking that he survived. They were practicing cannibalism. Why? Because it says manna means man. Now, a lot of times it said manna, and sometimes it said bread. Well, guess what? Bread was an indication of not just a loaf of bread or bread in your pantry or something like that. Bread could have meant chicken, fish, food, substance to survive. That's all it really meant. Bread was just another way of, instead of us using food, they would use the word bread. That was their indication of the word. So so when you say food, they're saying bread because it was a substance. I know they had a word for fish too, blah, 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 blah. But overall, it's a combination of everything that you can eat. So that's really what it was. And when you look up the Strong Concordance on manna, you will see that it was man. So cannibalism was possibly practiced those 40 years. Here we go. Here's another one. Because and this is more indicated. So, matter of fact, this was on page 204. Okay, where he talks about manna. Then another time in page 222, he says this: to the known arguments, he added new ones. It had already been suggested that manna, which served in the lieu of bread, was the edible white berry-like resinous deposits left by small insects that feed on the tamarisk bushes. There are few tamarisk in southern Sinai that they are plentiful in northern Sinai. Now, this is just interesting to him. He made sure to go back and talk about that, right? But like I said, he never talked about how manna meant man. And if he knows what about the strong concordance, and since he was a translator himself, like he said, because he said he could translate the text and blah, 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 he knows about the strong concordance. So why did he leave that out? Because that wasn't part of his narrative. That's why. Give everybody all the information and let them decide what they want to believe. Don't just give them something and say this is what you need to believe. Give them all the information that pertains to what you're trying to share. The narrative that you're trying to create is not a narrative that I want to believe, especially when I do on my own due diligence. The pyramids of gods and kings. Now you can read this. This is on page 12, 228. It says, who are the two divine card holders? What is their function? Are they identically situated? And if so, why do they hold or pull two cords and not just one? Where are they? What is their connection with Shamash? Why did I? Maybe you know what? I probably just had to look up this individual more and see who this person was, because I'm not sure why I tabbed that up. But okay, here we go. The solution, we believe, has been available all along in the very same British Museum, not among its Assyrian exhibits, however, but in its Egyptian department. In a room separate from the mummies and the other remains of the dead and their tombs, there are exhibited pages from the various papyri inscribed with the Book of the Dead, and the answer is right there. Now, let me tell you something. This is why I'm telling you that he doesn't know what he's talking about, let alone Billy Carson and anybody that follows what Zecharia Sitchin says. The Book of the Dead wasn't just for one person. Everybody had their own. It's just like an obituary, basically. That's what it was, really. If I died in those ancient times, my Book of the Dead pamphlet, book, papyri, or whatever you want to call it, will be based on my journey, okay? What I would have to do to get to the afterlife. And then the next person would have their own, and the next person would have their own. Now, there's one in particular that most people know about and follow, but that's not the only Book of the Dead. When people say the Book of the Dead, they 9 times out of 10, they only know of only one. There's thousands of books of the dead. The only problem is it was pertaining to a certain group of individuals. As a matter of fact, every king and queen had their own version of the Book of the Dead. Let's see. The next tab, it says, he took his compass with Baalbek as the focal point. He drew an arc through the highest peak of the Sinai Desert where it intersected the Arabic line. He made a cross within a circle. Then he drew 2 lines of equal length, one connecting Baalbek with the peak in Sinai, the other with the site marked by cross. So basically what he was just trying to say was, in this book, let's see, page 232, he was basically trying to say this was a representation, there we go, of spaceports. You can see right there on the bottom. Spaceport, mission control, outline the flight corridor, and then he uses the next page. You know what? Man, he blew, you know, I'm telling you, like Melissa said, once you find out the information and get true actual information and facts, stuff like this just sounds like I'm watching SpongeBob SquarePants at the moment. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make sense to me. And it blows my mind that people believe this. And they say that they've read the ancient text for themselves. So show me where in the ancient text it actually says it. Like I said, just show me the cuneiform tablet identifier. That's all I need. Let's see. The next tab. Oh, yeah, it's just continue on about. So this is what it actually says, because I'm not going to put in my own words. This let us add at once is only part of the amazing grid, which he shall show, not we, he, was laid out by the Anunnaki in connection with their post-diluvial spaceport. First of all, where the goddamn metal at, man? Where's the metal at for these spaceports? I mean, come on, man. Show me where the metal is at. Show me where we got rockets at. I mean, there's got to be some kind of indication that we have something from it, right? I mean, come on, man. No wires, no nothing. Plastic. Come on, brother. But anyway, therefore, whether or not the conversation has taken place aboard a shuttlecraft, we are pretty certain that this is how the pyramids came to be in Egypt. So basically, he's saying the pyramids because they was an indicator for for landing of spacecrafts and stuff like that. Come on. But we're gonna keep it pushing. Almost done with this book, y'all. Almost done. And I'm actually I'll talk about that in a minute. It says, was it possible that two kings had built the same pyramid? And if so, who were they? Now, this is what me and Lil Vibe was talking about, actually. He actually brought this up, so I'm not going to take this credit, but he actually said that if one person designed the pyramids and the other person built it, who would get credit? Does the architect usually get credit, or is the person that's sponsoring, designing, or providing the assets gets credit? Think about that for a second, right? Most people don't know who the architect who is, or the engineers who built and designed pyramids or anything in that matter, right? But you can definitely see somebody's name, like this building was brought to you by, I don't know, we'll just use Rothschild, because I've seen some people talking about Rothschild in the stream. Rothschild. That's what you're going to get, right? You're going to get individuals talking about and saying, hey, look, how can I say it? I designed it, so I want credit. I don't want you to give credit to the person that built it. I want you to give credit to the person that I want the credit. So that's usually how it goes. It's funny that Michael says Michigan copper, because there's this argument right now. I just put a post up on my Twitter X account, one of the largest copper nuggets in the world. There's an argument that if you go by ChatGPT, it's somewhere in Michigan, but then there's one in Savannah, the one that I've seen personally, and I took a picture of it and posted it on my X account. And that one in Savannah is supposed to be the largest. I'm actually gonna go back there and see if I can get some more information on it from the individuals that house that nugget, because it's been a very hot topic for the last 2 weeks. Ricardo Cavalero, I actually done a couple of podcasts with him, I think about 5 already, and he wrote us a paper on copper, and he struck a lot of interest in a lot of people about copper. And Michigan is supposed to have one of the largest nuggets, but the other argument is here in my town in Savannah, which is interesting. So if you're near Savannah, Georgia, if you know where you go down the riverside, and you will see it's actually in a hotel, which is interesting. The hotel is a hotel/museum, which is very, very interesting. And it's free. You can walk in there and you don't even have to pay. They have all kinds of stones, crystals. They have, hey, what's up, Alexander? And they have dinosaur bones, mammoth bones, turtle bones, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different stuff over there. So, which is very, 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 very interesting and intriguing. All right. So the next tab that I found interesting from Zecharia Sitchin is, as it turned out, both source books by which Vice Hill were guided contained spelling errors. Okay, so this is about Khufu. This is actually interesting because a lot of people, this is not misinformation. Zecharia Sitchin actually was accurate about this. The spelling of Khufu inside the pyramid was incorrect. Now, the only question is how do we? Well, some people say I think they tested a dye or something like that, and they seen that it wasn't at that time frame. I'm not sure how accurate that is or not, but a lot of people say because of the misspelling that that it couldn't have been Khufu. But I also think about people can't spell for shit today either, right now, right? That's why we have all these programs like AI Grammarly and all these other programs that help with our grammatical order errors, right? Um, People misspell words all the time. Um, I, it's so funny because when you go read a book, every book that I've read personally, every single book that I've read has some type of grammatical errors in it. Does that mean that it's not written or it's not facts or it's not actual correct? Who knows? Like Alexander said, the Khufu stuff is so complicated. It's still not resolved, but more arguments for it not to be a hoax. Exactly. This is the thing. Maybe the person who was in charge of building it didn't know how to read and write. At that time, not everybody knew how to read and write, and not everybody knew the right, and there wasn't no 100% way of writing the accurately and so on and so forth. They had schools and so on and universities and stuff like that to teach people. But I mean, even today, you go to a college and you turn in a piece of paper, I guarantee you there's plenty of people that have incorrect information. But here's the last tab, and we're about to end the show. It says, and this might be good to Alexandra. Hold on, let me see what Vibe said. He says Khufu laid the blueprint like Jay-Z. Definitely sure did. Blueprint 2 was the part when it started being built. If the proof of the construction of the Giza pyramids by the presumed pharaoh stands shattered, there is no longer reason to suspect the authenticity of the inventory stela, which stated that the pyramids and the Sphinx were already there when Khufu came to pay homage to Isis and Osiris. Now, this is where I want to challenge people. The pyramid wasn't designed in one section or one go. Everything that I've learned so far is that there were steps to these, monumental places. Is it possible that part of the pyramids were built in one time and another pyramid, then another king came across and said, "Hey, I want to build onto it," and another one said, "I want to build onto it," and then as there's certain height, that's where it ended. That's possible, right? So, but the problem is we don't know. There's a lot of arguments that there is no indication of how they built the pyramids. Well, I can tell you, if you go read Herodotus books right now, he would definitely tell you how the pyramids were built, and he would tell you that there was a ramp that led up to it. Matter of fact, a lot of people have said, and I don't know why people say this, and they say that they read the ancient text, because when you read Herodotus books, he literally says it took 30 years to build the pyramids, not 20. See, when everybody says every minute they had to lay a stone down or every 50 seconds they had to lay the stone down because of the 20 years and this and that, they're incorrect. And I'm telling you, because when you go read Herodotus, and I'm going to go over it in the future, like I said, I don't ever say anything that I can't prove. I've already posted it plenty of times. You don't, matter of fact, you don't have to believe what I said. Just go look it up for yourself. Herodotus says it took 30 years to build the pyramids, 10 years for the ramp, and 20 years for the pyramid itself. But this is what people have to understand. A lot of preparation had to happen before that even came to be. So maybe they prepared so much that it only took them 2 to 3 minutes to do some stuff. If you're good at something, it won't take you long to do something, right? When you're really good at it. And the idea that a lot of people sit here and say that, these pyramids were built at certain different times and so on and so forth. I'm in agree with that. Imhotep came before Khufu, and Imhotep designed the first step pyramid for Pharaoh Doja. That's 100% facts. That's why I believe that there's a lot of information that a lot of people don't want to believe because it goes against their narrative. We already know that there were people who built step pyramids. You can build the pyramid of Giza out of a step pyramid. You literally can build one, right? Basically that's how they did it in so many different ways, but you can definitely do that. So the idea that there's a pyramid and that there's that there were designs and all this other stuff, that's actually actual. That's facts. But like I said, every book that I've read, I recommend reading. Even though I don't agree with Zecharia Sitchin and a lot of stuff that he says kind of infuriates me to the point where it's just like, why do people believe this? It's because of the simple fact that I take my time to read this. I actually go in there and I try to understand. And it's not because I want to be right. It's just, I just want to know. Right. And if you have information that could better somebody on their journey, then give it to them, but give them the source. I hear far too much that people needed that it said that people need to do better research. Well, what is better research? Come on, people that say that blow my mind. What is better research? You just continue to do your journey. I've read thousands of books. I've read plenty of books. I've did my due diligence. Every book that I have in my library, except the ones that I'm building that I haven't read yet. Every book that I've read so far, I've read at least 3 or 4 times. And I've read Zecharia Sitchin's books at least 5 times because that's supposedly be the bread and butter for the ancient alien theories and stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that there's no aliens and extraterrestrials that came from planet Earth. I have a whole theory that I have never talked about, and I'm waiting for the right person to ask me to share my thoughts about it, to question me on it. And the reason why is because it's going to get so deep to the point where it will make people think. But if I do it on my own, it won't really hit as hard. So I'm saving that. That's my special, I guess you can say, retirement discussion, I guess you could say. But every book that I've read, there's been definitely similarities between across, the whole world. We've been migrating for thousands of years, and it's not hard for us to come up with same ideas. Most people who come up with inventions, they're usually not the first person that came up with that invention. They're just the first person that got enough support from others to help them bring that invention to reality. Um, I know for the first time somebody rode in a horse carriage, they wish they could have had something that they didn't have to worry about feeding a horse because, horses die and get sick and all this other stuff. So, that's how cars were. I'm pretty sure when people looked at birds flying in the sky, they was like, man, I wish man could fly. And then eventually the Wright brothers came around and guess what? They created the first airplane. You know, Inventions only happen because there's enough support behind that invention. There's a lot, and in this world, it's really hard to get a lot of support because a lot of people want to be recognized for their own findings rather than findings of humanity, and that's part of the problem. That's why I said earlier there's a lot of saturation within the podcasting world. A lot of people would talk to the same individuals, and the same individual would talk about the same thing. You come on my podcast and have a discussion with me, I will challenge you, and I would do it respectfully. Now, if we get on next and you start talking, sideways to me, then that's a whole different story. But I will hold, I will do it respectfully as long as you respect me. I always show respect first, and I expect respect in return. And I'm that type of person where I can be petty. I'm like the 50 Cent of this history. I really am that petty sometimes. And the reason why is because that's just who I am. I have a personality. I'm not like others, and nobody should be like me, and I shouldn't be like anybody else. And that's what all makes us human in my eyes. I couldn't be who I am without, you know, being human. I mean, humans have flaws. If you think you don't have any flaws, then you ain't human to me, and you're something that I don't want to be in contact with. But I do love entertainment. I enjoy having fun, and I also love arguing. And I grew up with Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Dennis Rodman, and all these other people. And you know what I'm saying? So I enjoy entertainment, but I really take this history and the stuff that I do serious. I enjoy it. I put, a lot of years into this. I became a bestseller just sharing what I've learned and being who I am personally. I know a lot of people don't like me, and that's fine. You don't have to like me, but if you really want the facts, you would not deny my ambition. One of my favorite songs from Lil Vibe on Spotify. Check that out. Ambitions. It's my. I have this fire in me that can't be tamed, and it can't be tamed because gasoline been thrown on it, and JPA, and propane and everything else that is flammable was thrown on that fire, and I just exploded with this. So I really try to give everybody the best that I've learned on what I've learned. And I don't have to worry about trying to exaggerate or create my narrative because I'm not about to add another narrative. I do have theories out there and I do have ideas, but before I share them, I have to be at least knowledgeable on what the basics are. Like I know basically that the universe is almost 14 billion years old. Earth is about 4 billion years old. Obviously, something other than us exists out there. What it is, I have no idea. But it is true. I know that ghosts are, they are real. I've had my own experiences. I've seen UFOs, and I even posted orbs right off my ring cam. So I don't say anything unless I've done my due diligence, experienced it, and went deep end on my research. And I really appreciate everybody coming in. We got 153 people at 10 o'clock in the morning, which is great and amazing. Please share this. If you enjoy what I share, please visit Lil Vibe on Spotify and just listen to one track. Matter of fact, I always tell people this: you don't ever have to uh, go through a whole song or a whole video to listen or support somebody. Everything that I share usually goes on my website anyway, or on my YouTube channel. I have almost 200 videos on my YouTube channel. I just created a Rumble account where I'm visiting different places around America and bringing you American history, from museums to Native American mounds to Civil War, Revolutionary War, basic historical markers, and all kinds of stuff. I'm just trying to bring that to the world. I just have a passion for history, and I love it to the point where I will fight to the dead end of it to get it right. The next book I'm going to do is this one right here, The Lost Realms, by Zecharia Sitchin, the fourth book of his Earth Chronicles. There's 7 of them in there, plus he has some other books. So I'm going to go through all his books. Of course, I'm going through all my books on that I own personally. If you want to know, if you want me to go over a specific book, go to my website, rebirthoftheword.com, click on the tab Knowledge is Power, and that will give you a list of all the books that I own personally. Not all the books that I've read, but I own personally. And the reason why I say that is because these are books that I have on hand that has these tabs, and every one of those books on there has I have tabs on. I think there's like 300 or 400 books on there. A lot of them are multiple books. Like, Zecharia Sitchin has 7. This is a 7 series book. So there's 7 books that I have, when I put them on there. Herodotus has like 11 books, 10 books, and Plato has like 40, or it could be the other way around. But the list is very long. Also have peer-reviewed articles on there that I've read and researched. I've also have classes that I've taken from universities on there. So everything that I'm sharing from you comes from something that I learned. Now, can I tell you that these people are right and that they're more right than the other person? No, because I'm going to tell you this before I end this. You can have 2 people who have PhDs in the same field, who went to the same class, had the same exact teacher, graduated at the same exact time, took the same exact test, but they can have different ideas. Which one do you pick to be right? I don't know. Knowledge is power. I appreciate everybody coming in. Thank you.